All right, so today we're going to take a deep dive into the world of body language.
Yeah.
You've given us this awesome guide.
Yes.
How to read a person like a book.
Mm-hmm.
And I got to say, this thing is packed with insights
It really is.
about decoding those subtle cues, like those unspoken signals
Yeah.
that reveal what people are really thinking, even if they never say it out loud.
Yeah, it's amazing how much we miss
Right.
when we only focus on the spoken word.
Yeah.
It's like listening to half a conversation.
Right.
By understanding body language, you're not only getting the full picture,
Mm-hmm.
but also gaining a real advantage in your interactions, whether it's at work at home
Mm-hmm.
or even just navigating a crowded party.
See, that's what I'm excited about, like
Yeah.
becoming a human lie detector.
Right.
But maybe not quite, but getting closer to understanding what's beneath the surface.
Absolutely.
So where do we start with this?
Well, let's begin with gestures of openness and honesty. One of the most striking findings in the book is the significance of open hands.
Okay, I'm intrigued.
Yeah.
Tell me more about that.
So think about cultures known for their expressiveness,
Okay.
like Italy.
Yeah.
They often use open hands, palms up,
Uh-huh.
almost as if they're saying, hey, I'm being straight with you.
Yeah.
Research actually backs this up.
Okay.
Studies have shown that people are more likely to believe someone with open hands
Interesting.
because it subconsciously signals a lack of threat.
So it's like a built-in trust mechanism
Yes,
based on evolution,
Yeah.
showing you're not hiding a weapon.
exactly. It goes
Yeah.
back to our primal instincts.
Wow.
And it's not just about hands.
Okay.
Think about someone unbuttoning their jacket.
Yeah.
It might seem like a simple action, but it can actually be a subtle sign of receptiveness.
I've never thought about that. But it makes sense if someone is literally opening up their personal space. It could mean they're becoming more open to your ideas as well.
Yeah,
It's something I'll definitely be watching for in my next meeting.
the book even mentions a story about a newlywed
Okay.
who could identify their family members at a crowded party
Oh, wow.
just by seeing who had taken off their coats.
Really?
It became their own nonverbal code for belonging and comfort.
That's incredible.
Yeah,
Makes you realize we're probably picking up on these cues all the time without even knowing it.
we are. And the more aware we become, the better we can decipher
All
them.
right.
Now, while open gestures invite, trust the absence of them.
Okay.
Doesn't always mean someone is being deceitful.
Right.
Sometimes it's just defensiveness.
So let's unpack that.
Okay.
What are some signs that someone might be feeling defensive, even if it's not immediately obvious?
Sometimes what appears relaxed can be the opposite.
Oh, really?
Have you ever seen someone sitting with one leg crossed over the arm of a chair?
Yeah.
It might look casual, but according to the book, this posture can signal a lack of cooperation.
Like that airline passenger who's giving the flight attendant a hard time.
Precisely.
I can totally picture that.
Or think about a negotiation where one person adopts that position.
Yeah.
It could be a sign they're not fully on board or
Mhm.
willing to find common ground.
So it's like their body language is subtly saying, I'm not budging.
Yes, and it's fascinating how even the way we cross our legs can have different cultural interpretations.
Uh-huh.
The book points out a distinction between the American figure four style,
Okay.
where the ankle rests on the knee,
Mhm.
and the European method, which is a simpler leg-over-leg cross.
I've never noticed that before.
Yeah.
Does the book explain what those variations might reveal about someone's mindset?
While it's not an exact science, the author suggests that the American figure four could be associated with competitiveness or assertiveness,
Okay.
while the European style might be seen as more relaxed or refined.
Okay, so crossed legs. Who knew they held so many secrets?
Yeah.
It makes you wonder how much information we're missing just because we're not paying attention. What else should we be looking for?
Let's move into the realm of evaluation and suspicion.
Okay.
The book introduces this intriguing concept
Yeah.
called thinking through to the subconscious,
Mm-hmm.
which basically means consciously recognizing gestures
Okay.
to understand their hidden meanings.
So if we want to know if someone is sizing us up or doubting our words,
Yeah.
what should we be looking for?
Pay close attention to hand-to-face gestures.
Okay.
These are often key indicators of someone's level of engagement
Okay.
and critical thinking.
Like when someone strokes their chin, they might be deep in thought trying to make a decision.
Yes.
But I've always wondered about nose touching.
Mhm.
Is that always a sign of deceit, like some people say?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
While touching or rubbing the nose can signal doubt or uncertainty,
Mm-hmm.
It's not always a lie detector test.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's just a subconscious attempt to block out something uncomfortable.
Yeah.
The key is to look for congruence between the gestures and the words.
So if someone is praising your idea while simultaneously touching their nose,
Yes.
there might be some skepticism lurking beneath the surface.
Exactly. It's like their body is betraying their true feelings.
Okay, this is getting really interesting.
Yeah.
What other gestures should we be aware of?
Let's talk about gestures of readiness and reassurance.
Okay.
Have you ever noticed someone perched on the edge of their seat?
Yeah.
That can be a classic sign of readiness for action.
I can see that, like, they're about to jump up and make a deal or bolt out of the room.
Right.
But couldn't that same gesture also indicate nervousness or impatience, depending on the context?
Absolutely.
Okay.
That's why it's so important to consider the entire gesture cluster, not just a single movement in isolation.
Right.
Now, when it comes to reassurance, those gestures are like our adult security blankets.
So things like rubbing your thumbs together or twirling your hair are ways of self-soothing in moments of stress.
Exactly. There's subtle ways of calming ourselves down when we're feeling anxious or uncertain.
Yeah.
And sometimes these gestures can be very specific.
Okay.
For example, the book mentions women bringing their hand to their throat
Okay.
as a reassurance gesture.
That's interesting. Is it like subconsciously protecting a vulnerable area?
It could be, but remember, it's essential to consider the context.
Right.
It might also signal discomfort or even a feeling of being choked up emotionally.
This is really making me rethink how much I miss in everyday interactions.
Yeah.
Before we move on, I'd love to get your take on something.
Okay.
I've always wondered if these reassurance gestures are more common in certain personality types.
Interesting.
Do you think introverts might rely on them more than extroverts?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And while the book doesn't specifically address personality types,
Right.
it's an intriguing idea.
Yeah.
Perhaps introverts who tend to be more internally focused might use these self-soothing gestures as a way of managing their energy levels in social situations.
Okay, we need to get a personality expert on here to break that down further.
Yeah, that would be interesting.
Now, before things get too heated, let's talk about frustration and self-control.
Okay.
How can we spot those gestures before someone blows their top?
This is where understanding body language can be truly valuable.
Okay.
It's like having a warning system that tells us to de-escalate the situation.
So what are the red flags?
Watch for things like short breaths,
Okay.
clenched fists, and that beating gesture where someone rhythmically pumps their fist.
Yeah.
These are all signs that someone's internal pressure cooker is about to explode.
I've even seen people make that beating gesture with their fingers on a table, like they're drumming out their frustration.
Exactly, and sometimes the gestures are more subtle.
Okay.
The book tells a fascinating story about a bartender who could predict bar fights
Really?
just by observing who was rubbing the back of their neck.
Wow, that's incredible insight.
Yeah.
I wonder if that bartender realized how valuable that knowledge was.
Right.
Speaking of insights, let's dive into the fascinating interplay between confidence and nervousness. They seem like opposites, but I bet body language reveals how interconnected they can be.
You're right, they often go hand in hand.
Yeah.
One of the most powerful gestures of confidence and sometimes dominance is steepling.
Okay.
This is where someone joins their fingertips, forming a kind of church steeple shape.
I've seen that. Thing of powerful executives or even Sherlock Holmes in those old movies.
Precisely, it projects authority and self-assuredness.
Yeah.
But steepling can also be used as a way to mask nervousness.
Interesting. So someone might be steepling to appear confident,
Yes.
but it could actually be a sign that they're trying to control their shaking hands.
That's a great observation.
Yeah.
And it highlights how body language can be both a tool of expression and a mask.
Right.
Another gesture cluster to watch for is locked ankles combined with clenched hands.
That's something I do all the time,
Really?
especially when I'm feeling stressed or anxious.
It's a common reaction, often seen in situations like job interviews.
Oh, yeah.
Or even at the dentist's office.
Wow. Is it because we're trying to physically restrain ourselves from showing those strong emotions?
It's possible. It's like our body's way of saying, hold it together.
Right.
And those subtle cues can speak volumes about what's going on beneath the surface.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so we've talked about how body language reveals hidden emotions, but what about those unspoken signals that spark connection and attraction? Let's get into the world of courtship and social dynamics.
This is where nonverbal communication gets really intriguing.
Okay.
Think about those preening gestures we all do.
Yeah.
Especially when we're trying to impress someone.
Yeah.
Smoothing our hair, adjusting our clothes, that quick glance in the mirror.
Yeah.
It's like a little performance designed to capture attention.
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about looking good, right?
Right.
It's about sending those subtle signals of interest.
Exactly.
I've always wondered if mirroring someone's body language when you're attracted to them is a conscious choice or an unconscious thing. What do you think?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
While we might consciously try to make ourselves more appealing,
Yeah.
a lot of those courtship gestures happen below our awareness.
Okay.
For example, people often subtly angle their bodies toward the person they're interested in. It's like they're subconsciously trying to bridge the gap between them.
So even if we're trying to play it cool, our body language might be giving us away.
Exactly.
The book also talks about the hunter's position at a bar.
Yes.
I love that term. It paints such a vivid picture.
It does. It describes how people strategically position themselves to scan the room and spot potential partners.
Right.
But it's not just about men being the hunters.
Right.
Women have their own nonverbal tactics for attracting attention,
Okay.
like positioning themselves in a highly visible spot,
Yeah.
or using eye contact and a playful touch to signal interest.
It's like a fascinating dance where each move sends a message.
It is.
What happens once that initial connection is made?
Yeah.
How does body language shift as things heat up?
Well, those courtship gestures become more pronounced.
Okay.
You'll see more touching, leaning closer, more sustained eye contact. Those unspoken signs that the spark is real.
It's like a nonverbal conversation that's getting more intimate.
Right.
What about couples who have been together for a while?
Yeah.
What are the body language cues that reveal the strength of their bond?
One of the most telling signs is mirroring.
Okay.
Couples who are genuinely connected
Mm-hmm.
often unconsciously mirror each other's gestures and movements.
Oh, wow.
It's like their bodies are in sync, reflecting a deeper emotional harmony.
I love that imagery.
Yeah.
It's like their bodies are speaking the same language.
And they'll also maintain a comfortable level of eye contact and physical touch.
Okay.
It's not about those grand romantic gestures you see in movies,
Right.
but about those subtle, everyday signs of affection and connection.
On the flip side, if a couple is struggling, their body language might be out of sync.
Exactly. They might avoid eye contact,
Yeah.
maintain a physical distance,
Right.
and their gestures might clash rather than complement each other.
Right.
It's like their bodies are sending mixed signals, reflecting the disconnect in their relationship.
Okay, so we've decoded the language of love. Now let's shift gears and talk about a different kind of dynamic.
Okay.
The power struggles that often play out in the workplace.
Yes.
What can body language tell us about those office politics?
The workplace is a fascinating arena for nonverbal communication.
Okay.
Remember, your body language can convey confidence and competence,
Yeah.
even before you utter a word.
So stand tall, make eye contact, project that aura of I'm in charge,
Yes.
even if you're secretly freaking out inside.
You got it. And pay attention to your posture during meetings.
Okay.
Sitting up straight and leaning slightly forward
Mm-hmm.
shows that you're engaged and interested.
Okay.
Slouching back, on the other hand, can signal boredom or disrespect.
Oh, yeah.
It's almost like you're physically dismissing what's being said.
It's fascinating how those subtle shifts in posture can send such strong messages.
They do.
What about reading the room, so to speak?
Yeah.
How can we use body language to gauge our colleagues' and superiors' reactions?
That's a crucial skill.
Yeah.
Are people leaning in, nodding along, mirroring your gestures?
Right.
Or are they crossing their arms, looking away,
Mhm.
and sending those nonverbal signals of resistance?
Yeah.
Being attuned to those cues allows you to adjust your approach on the fly.
So it's not just about projecting confidence, but also about being perceptive and responsive to the nonverbal feedback you're receiving. It's like being a conductor, leading the orchestra of office interactions with your body language.
That's a fantastic analogy.
Yeah.
Now let's focus on a specific workplace dynamic.
Okay.
The client-professional relationship.
Okay.
How can we use body language to build trust and rapport with those we serve?
Okay, I'm all ears. This is something I think a lot of people struggle with, especially if they're new to a field or feel a little intimidated by their clients.
It all starts with conveying active listening. Simple things like nodding your head, maintaining eye contact, and leaning in slightly can make a world of difference.
Right.
And avoid those distracting gestures like checking your watch or fidgeting
Yeah.
that might signal boredom or impatience.
It's like saying I'm fully present and focused on you without actually saying it.
Exactly. And if a client seems anxious or uncertain, mirroring can be a powerful tool.
Okay.
By subtly matching their posture and gestures, You create a sense of empathy and understanding. It's like saying, I'm with you, I get it.
That makes a lot of sense, especially in fields where clients might be sharing sensitive information.
Yes.
Or feeling vulnerable.
Absolutely. And remember, while confidence is important,
Right.
it's crucial to avoid dominant signals.
Okay.
Especially when trying to build trust.
Right.
Steepling, for example, might be effective in a boardroom,
Yeah.
but it can be intimidating in a one-on-one meeting with a client.
It's about finding that balance between assertiveness and approachability. You want to convey expertise without making the client feel overwhelmed or insignificant.
Right. Think of it like walking a tightrope,
Yeah.
carefully calibrating your body language to create that perfect blend of trust and authority.
The takeaway is that even those subtle nonverbal cues can have a significant impact on how clients perceive you and your expertise.
Absolutely.
Right.
They might not be consciously aware of it,
Right.
but they're always reading your body language.
Yeah.
By mastering those nonverbal nuances, you can make a positive and lasting impression, which can translate into stronger client relationships and ultimately greater success.
Okay, feeling empowered already. Now let's talk about a scenario where understanding body language can be a game changer.
Okay.
Negotiations.
Yes.
I'm ready to learn how to read the other side and come out on top.
Negotiations are all about understanding the unspoken dynamics. And body language is like a secret decoder ring.
Okay.
It can reveal the other party's true intentions and willingness to compromise, even if their words say otherwise.
So what are some red flags that someone's feeling tense or resistant, even if they're trying to appear agreeable?
Watch for those classic defensive gestures.
Okay.
Crossed arms, clenched fists, pursed lips, avoiding eye contact.
Okay.
It's like their body is building a wall to protect itself.
And what about those moments when you sense a shift, when the other person starts to soften their stance?
Yeah.
What are those aha body language cues that signal an opening?
You might see their body language literally open up.
Okay.
They might uncross their arms, lean forward, make more eye contact, and their facial expressions might become more relaxed.
Yeah.
Like that wall is coming down and they're becoming more receptive to your ideas.
It's like a dance where you're carefully reading their moves and adjusting your own steps to lead them towards a mutually beneficial outcome.
Exactly.
But it's not about manipulation, right?
Exactly. Successful negotiation isn't about tricks or domination.
Right.
It's about finding common ground, understanding the other person's needs, and creating a solution that everyone can feel good about.
So how can people use their body language skills to achieve that?
First, be aware of your own nonverbal signals.
Okay.
Project confidence without being aggressive, and remain open to the other person's cues.
Okay.
Second, learn to read those cues accurately.
Right.
Are they tense, defensive, engaged?
Yeah.
Once you understand their emotional state, you can tailor your approach accordingly.
It's like having that secret decoder ring that allows you to see past the words and understand the true message.
Precisely. And don't underestimate the power of mirroring.
Okay.
Subtly matching the other person's body language can create a sense of rapport and make them feel more comfortable and open to your ideas.
Yeah.
It's like you're saying, we're on the same team here.
Okay, feeling like a master negotiator already. Now let's shift gears and talk about a communication scenario that's often overlooked when it comes to body language.
Right.
Phone calls. Surely it doesn't matter as much when you can't see the other person, right?
You might be surprised. Even without visual cues,
Really?
we're constantly sending and receiving nonverbal messages over the phone.
Oh, wow.
Our tone of voice, pace of speech,
Yeah.
and even those little sounds we make can convey a wealth of information.
That makes sense when you think about it.
Yeah.
We can hear a smile in someone's voice or sense their frustration in a sigh.
Exactly.
The book talks about the significance of doodling during phone calls, which I found really fascinating.
Yes. For concrete thinkers,
Yeah.
doodling might be a sign of disinterest or boredom, but for those with a more abstract thinking style, it can actually be a way of focusing and processing information.
So it's not necessarily a sign that someone's not paying attention,
Right.
but maybe that their mind is working in a different way.
Exactly.
What about preening gestures?
Yeah.
Do those happen on the phone even when no one's watching?
Absolutely. Think about it.
Yeah.
People might adjust their hair, smooth their clothes, or even glance at themselves in the mirror while they're on a call,
Yeah.
especially if they're trying to make a good impression.
It's like we're always on stage to some extent, even when we think we're in private.
Exactly. And remember, even though the other person can't see you,
Yeah.
they can still sense your energy and attitude through your voice.
That's true.
So be mindful of your tone, your pace, and even those little sighs and laughs.
Right.
They all add up to create a nonverbal impression.
Okay. Officially convinced that body language is a superpower, even on the phone.
Yeah.
Before we wrap up, let's step into the courtroom for a moment.
Okay.
I'm curious to hear how body language plays a role in legal proceedings where the stakes are so high.
The courtroom is like a stage
Yeah.
where nonverbal communication can make or break a case.
Wow.
Attorneys, judges, and jurors are all attuned to those nonverbal cues as they can provide valuable insights into a person's credibility, honesty, and state of mind.
The book describes how lawyers use body language analysis to evaluate potential jurors, which I find fascinating.
Yes, they look for signs of openness, bias, skepticism,
Right.
or even hidden sympathies to try to predict who might be favorable or unfavorable to their case. It's like they're trying to read the jury's minds through their body language.
And what about witnesses?
Yes.
They're under intense scrutiny,
Right.
not just for what they say, but for how they say it.
Absolutely. Are they fidgeting, avoiding eye contact, sweating profusely?
Oh, yeah.
Those nonverbal cues can raise doubts about their testimony, even if their words seem convincing.
Wow.
And of course, lawyers themselves are masters of using body language strategically.
I can picture that.
Right.
A confident stance, strong eye contact,
Yes.
those carefully orchestrated gestures. It's almost like a performance.
It is. The courtroom is a stage where nonverbal communication can dramatically influence perceptions and sway outcomes.
Okay, before we send our listener off to decode the world around them,
Yes.
let's loop back to social gatherings. Armed with all this new knowledge about body language,
Yeah.
what should they look for at their next party or event?
It's time to put those detective skills to the test. Observe the nonverbal cues around you.
Okay.
Look for those clusters of gestures that reveal boredom, defensiveness, readiness, suspicion, or even suppressed emotions.
See if you can spot the bore and his unfortunate victim,
Yes.
the couple about to spark a connection, or the person who's trying to dominate the conversation with their expansive gestures and unwavering eye contact.
It's like social gatherings become these real-life games of Clue,
Yeah.
where the clues are hidden in people's postures, movements, and expressions.
I love that. It adds a whole new level of intrigue and engagement
It does.
to those social interactions. And remember, it's not about judging people or labeling them.
Right.
It's about gaining a deeper understanding of human behavior and using that knowledge to connect with others more authentically.
Exactly.
It's like learning a secret language that unlocks a whole new dimension of human interaction.
It is.
So as we wrap up this fascinating deep dive into the world of body language,
Yeah.
what's the biggest takeaway you want our listener to walk away with?
The key message is that we're all constantly communicating,
Yeah,
even when we're not saying a word.
right.
Our bodies are sending out signals, and the more attuned we are to those signals, both in ourselves and in others,
Right.
the more effectively we can navigate our interactions and build meaningful connections.
I think that's a great note to end on, but before we say goodbye, I want to leave our listener with a challenge.
Okay,
What gesture have you noticed that you've always wondered about?
that's a good one.
Share it with us on social media using #TheDeepDive, and maybe we'll explore it in a future episode.
We'd love to hear from you. Until then, keep observing, keep learning, and keep connecting.
And most importantly, have fun reading between the lines.
That's what the deep dive is all about.
Man, it's amazing how much we've unpacked just from this one book.
I know, right?
I feel like I'm seeing the world in a whole new way, like
Yeah.
noticing things I never paid attention to before.
That's the power of awareness.
Right.
It's like we've been walking around with blinders on, and now those blinders are starting to come off.
But as we become more aware of body language, it's important to remember that it's not a foolproof system, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One thing the book emphasizes is that body language is not an exact science.
Okay.
There are always exceptions and cultural nuances to consider.
Right. What might be a friendly gesture in one culture could be totally misinterpreted in another.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So it's crucial to be mindful of those cultural differences
Yeah.
and avoid jumping to conclusions based on a single gesture.
Right.
It's about looking at the bigger picture, the context, the relationship, the cultural background, and using our critical thinking skills to make sense of those nonverbal cues.
It's a good reminder that communication is a complex and multifaceted process, and there's always more to learn.
Absolutely. But even with those caveats, developing our awareness of body language
Yeah.
can make us more effective communicators. help us build stronger relationships, and allow us to navigate the world with greater confidence and understanding.
And who wouldn't want that? It's like having a secret advantage in every interaction.
It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive,
Okay.
we want to leave you with a final thought to ponder.
Okay, I'm ready for that final aha
Yeah.
moment.
Think about all the gestures you've observed.
Yeah.
All those nonverbal cues that have left you curious or intrigued.
Mhm.
Is there a particular gesture you've always wondered about?
Yeah.
A movement or expression that you just couldn't decipher?
I bet our listener has a whole list of them by now.
We encourage you to share those observations with us on social media using #TheDeepDive.
Okay.
We might even explore some of those mysteries in a future episode.
We love hearing from our listeners, so keep those questions coming. And until next time, keep observing, keep learning, and keep connecting.
And remember, the most important thing is to have fun reading between the lines.
That's what the deep dive is all about.